I told her that I first got hives when I was 16, and she said, "Please tell me what happened to you when you were 16 that resulted in chronic hives." Hey, so my name is Michelle. I'm 32 years old, and I want to recount to you the story of my battle with chronic hives, the diagnosis being mast cell activation syndrome. I have had this autoimmune disease since I was 16 years old, and this is my journey of healing from sickness to health. All right, so let's get the show on the road. She asked me, "What happened to you when you were 16 that resulted in chronic hives?" And I became immobile. No doctor had ever asked me that question before. And by that point, I had seen allergists, dermatologists, naturopaths, holistic doctors, immunologists. I had undergone countless allergy panels. I'd done stool tests, blood work, hormone screenings. All of them would come back clean, and I was told I was fine. I had spent upward to $30,000 on both private and public health care at that point. And I was told that I just had chronic hives. I remember during one remote consultation with my immunologist in 2021, he said, "The good news is that you won't die from this condition." And I told him, "But I don't want to live like this." Which brings me back to messaging with Dr. Pramita Radish in January of 2022, reading one of the most direct questions I've ever been asked, and I didn't know how to respond. And before I could fully process, she had already messaged me again, "Can I call you?" I replied right away, "Not right now. I'm a little bit busy with work. Let's connect later this week." I was numbed by her question. I did not know what to tell her because I didn't have an answer. I didn't understand the question. When I was 16, I guess when I was 16 is now 14 years ago. What does it matter? What about what right now? What about my symptoms right now? But within the day, actually, we reconnected, and within a month, I was in a taxi from Trivandrum International Airport on my way to her house in Barkala. So that was March of 2022. COVID had devastated India in numerous ways, the least of which was tourism. But that is what mostly struck me because I had been to Barkala 2 years prior when it was a vibrant, alive, colorful town, and now it was completely empty. It was quiet. Very few people were on the streets. And I was Dr. Pramita Radish's only residential patient during that time. I stayed with her for a month. During those 4 weeks, we began to unpack why I had hives. We did not cure them by any means. Although I'm grateful to say today in 2025, I do not have hives. But in 2022, at Dr. Pramita's clinic, by the time I left, they were worse than when I had arrived because something vital had begun and I was undergoing a detox. So this is what I shared with Dr. Pramita. When I was 16, I woke up with hives all over my legs. I remember how annoyed I was. I was annoyed, slightly confused, but mostly annoyed. I already was living a difficult life, and this was just another thing for me to deal with. I remember getting dressed and going to school, and I spent the day scratching my legs through my pants. That's how it was for the next several weeks. Hives, illness, they were less of a concern to me than maybe another person because of the life I was living at that time. I was living with a dangerous person in my household. My father was a dangerous man. He was very volatile, physically violent, emotionally abusive, and I remember him shouting at my mother about me, threats. Maria, I could kill her. He shouted to my mother about me on a regular basis. But that's just how it was. It's how I always remember him to have been ever since I was young. My first memories of him shouting are when I was 3, 4 years old, and I know that they happened since my infancy, of course. So I fantasized about killing him. I remember telling my sister this, and she told me that she fantasized about killing herself. My sister and I were living very similar lives at that point. She's only 2 years younger than I am, but we coped much differently. But none of this crossed my mind. None of this crossed my conscious mind, I should say, when the hives first started when I was 16. To me, there was no clear trigger, no new food, no change in washing detergent. I wasn't living in a different place, no environmental shift. I told my mother and my father about the hives. My mother was living her own difficult life, and there was nothing she could do. I could see that. And my father didn't care. So I learned to live with them, and I kept going to school. I would wear clothes that would cover my body, and I would just scratch. I would scratch. In many ways, it just wasn't a surprise to me. I was already living a double life, keeping my home life and my school life very separate. I had, I would say, good friends, but they were school friends. I did not see them outside of school. I remember in the summer of 2010, the hives erupted all over my face. My eyes swelled shut, my lips swelled, and I had a summer job as a camp counselor at our local recreation center at that point. And I knew it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go in to work, my work with children, looking as I did. But my father insisted he drop me off at the train anyway, and I didn't go to work. I just rode the train. I remember being annoyed that I had to spend the little money that I had. I wasn't making a ton at the recreation center on a train ticket that I wasn't even going to use. I remember wearing large sunglasses. I actually ended up getting off the train at one of the last stops in Boston and going to a coffee shop. And I made eye contact with the barista when I ordered the coffee. And I remember her staring at me through my glasses. It was clear that my glasses did not hide my swelled eyelids. The next day, the hives had subsided a little, I explained to my coworkers that I was sick the day prior, and that's why my face looked like this. And someone mentioned that I should try antihistamines. And remember filing that information away for later. But for the most part, the hives were just another thing that I was carrying. I was already living with this weight of, protecting my father from ridicule. I didn't want to disturb the family in any way. I didn't want the outside world to see what was going on um, at that point. But I started living with hives and they never fully left. The flare-ups have come and gone ever since, sometimes lasting weeks, sometimes lasting months, and then in 2021 through 2023, lasting for 2 years. And back then, not long after the flare-up that happened all over my face, I did see a doctor. My father didn't allow my mother to take me to the doctor's office, and he refused to take me. So I walked 45 minutes to the commuter rail, and then I rode the train for an hour, and then walked another 30 minutes. My doctor told me that I had idiopathic hives, which is chronic hives, and that she wouldn't be able to tell me why I had them, and that most people with idiopathic hives never find out the reason that they first come into existence. She was the second person to recommend me antihistamines. She recommended that I take daily Claritin, and I have ever since. I remember going to CVS that day, spending $40 on 90 capsules. And I've been doing that every 90 days, spending the $40 ever since. The hives faded at that point. And for about a year, I forgot about them. So this is chapter 1.